Mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Natasha Jonas bids Liverpool farewell with a win. Likely date versus Lauren Price. Liverpool, England. Natasha Jonas defeated Ivana Habazin this past Saturday to unify the WBC and IBF welterweight titles and set up a unification fight with Lauren Price next year. Jonas countered well against the resilient Habazin to take a unanimous decision on all three judges' scorecards. The fight in Liverpool's Exhibition Centre could turn out to be Jonas's last in her home city, and she emotionally thanked the crowd for their support across her career. "I just want to thank everyone that has come out to watch me," said Jonas post-fight. "Over 20 years, your support has been incredible. I'm so proud to be a Scouse." The victory has surely set up a unification with fellow Brit and WBA champion Lauren Price. Jonas and Price met in the ring after Jonas's win and had a lot to say to each other. "I think we all know who next is," said Jonas. "I will do everything to get to where I want to go. The story isn't over yet. Enjoy your Christmas and have a good camp. I'll see you soon," Price responded. "Be careful what you wish for," Jonas replied, to which Price stated, "Too quick, too fast, and too strong."
Is that the way it is?
Is Lauren Price too big and too fast and too strong for Natasha Jonas, who looked on form this past weekend with Ivana Habazin, that offers up a lot to work with, a lot to counter,
a lot to exploit?
If you managed to catch the fight, you would have seen that Ivana Habazin is nowhere near as coordinated as Natasha Jonas in terms of movement and foot placement.
That's something that Natasha Jonas was able to exploit by creating distance to walk Ivana Habazin into counter shots, countering her in between. As Ivana Habazin would barrel forward, trying to get aggressive, she'd get caught.
She'd get countered, at which point Natasha Jonas would use that as an opportunity to put punches together and fight her off. Ivana Habazin, who was a bit too upright when closing the distance, standing square, trying to let punches go, she's right there for counters. Whereas Lauren, it's going to be a lot more tricky with Lauren because she's just as, if not more coordinated than Natasha Jonas with speed.
I don't know how you're supposed to train for the kind of speed that Lauren Price has. Who can mimic it?
Who can duplicate it? Big part of the reason that Natasha Jonas was able to do as well as she did this past weekend is because of all the mistakes that Ivana Habazin regularly makes. The kind of mistakes that Lauren Price doesn't make. The punches are shorter, much shorter, tighter, and harder to counter. They're coming in hot. They're fast.
May not see them coming.
Those are the ones that do the most damage. Those are the ones that hurt the most. No, you won't catch Lauren Price lunging or leaning over her lead foot, standing square mid-range to inside. She won't offer any of that for you to exploit.
With her head dead center like a piñata.
It would seem that the working date for this fight is sometime in March in what's rumored to be an all-female show, not dissimilar from what we saw in the Shields vs. Marshall card.
That was an all-female show, and this is rumored to be an all-female show.
With Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price in the main event. You know how I feel about it. You know how I think that's going to play out. I'm a big fan of Natasha Jonas. I have been for years, but this is going to be her swan song. I anticipate that Lauren Price is going to retire Natasha Jonas and go on to become the most dominant force in this division.
It's hard to imagine that anyone will be able to contend with the accuracy, the athleticism, the speed, and the power of Lauren Price, the ring savvy.
I don't think Natasha Jonas can beat her. I don't know that anybody in the welterweight division can beat Lauren Price, and that includes former champion Sandy Ryan, who's a great fighter. She's a great fighter, but I don't think I could trust her to win this fight, or Michaela Mayer for that matter, newly crowned WBO champion. Lauren is simply too strong, too fast, she's too good.
I think she's set to become the most dominant force anywhere at or around 147 pounds. She's coming into her own.
So just to get it on record, one more time. If these two do fight in March, I've got Lauren Price. And I've got Lauren Price by way of knockout. Men's lightweight news. Sean Porter says Lamont Roach won't be surprised by Gervonta Davis. Sean Porter is anticipating a keenly contested clash between Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach on March 1st at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Baltimore's Davis, 30, will defend his WBA lightweight title against 29-year-old familiar foe Roach of Washington. The fight is expected to bring back the old rivalries following the two fighters' amateur clashes. Porter, a former WBC welterweight champion, expects a very tough contest. The fact that Lamont Roach is as familiar with Tank Davis as he is, it goes beyond them fighting in the amateurs, Porter told Fight Hub TV. They spent time in camp together. He's been around. He's seen Tank up close and personal. Whether he's in the ring with them or not, that matters. When you know a guy's rhythm, when you know their speed, when you know what they're thinking, that changes everything.
Seems to me that Sean Porter is acting as another arm of promotion for this fight that no one was asking for. Gervonta Davis versus another super featherweight.
Though I suppose that Jaime Munguia's big upset this past weekend in Tijuana at the hands of a career middleweight who moved up to super middle for this fight.
It does add an air of spontaneity to every contest we see moving forward, that it might all look a certain way going in and then something unexpected happens.
But you know, that Jaime Munguia versus Sriracha fight, that didn't cost you $80. This does. So there is also something to be said about that. Davis, 30-0, and Roach, 25-1, were scheduled to face each other on December 14th, but the fight was rescheduled to next March. Boxing Scene reported earlier this month that Davis had failed to honor the initial date after the birth of his son in August.
You know that they've changed the story because that's not what they said at first. What they said at first was the reason they were moving the fight was because there was an issue with the venue. Now what they're saying is it's because Gervonta wanted to spend more time with his son.
Opting to spend more time with his newborn instead of going away to camp. Davis goes into the Roach fight on the back of a devastating 8th-round knockout win over Frank Martin in June, making it 4 consecutive stoppage wins. Meanwhile, Roach has managed 6 consecutive wins since losing to Jamel Herring in a WBO super featherweight title fight back in 2019.
Something to be said about that as well.
A little over 4 or 5 years ago, we got to see Jamel Herring via Top Rank on ESPN take Lamont Roach to school, and it didn't cost you $80 to watch. So why should this?
It shouldn't.
In November of last year, Roach became a world champion when he earned a 12-round split decision win over Hector Luis Garcia to clinch the WBA junior lightweight title. Roach successfully defended his belt last June against Fear Gal McCrory, stopping the Irish southpaw in 8 rounds. Despite Roach's credentials, Davis's power makes him the favorite ahead of the clash, but Porter believes Roach would be up to the task on fight night. This might be a fight until he gets hit again and again. He's tasted that before, so if he gets hit and he doesn't go away, we've got a fight on our hands. I think it's a good fight. We'll see. Like I said, when you've tasted that before and you know what it feels like and what it looks like and all of that stuff, it's much different from it being your first time getting hit with that kind of power. Your first time seeing that kind of speed and that kind of overall makeup of a tank. Davis is surprising to most fighters. It won't be surprising to Lamont Roach.
You want to know what's surprising? What's surprising is that you guys have the audacity, you have the gall to try to charge people $75 to $80 to watch this fight that no one was asking for against a fighter who Jamel Herring took to school years ago. So years later, why should it cost this much?
And we've spent enough time talking about that. Let's talk about what Sean said, that, Lamont Roach may not be surprised at what Gervonta brings to the table, his speed, his power, and all of that. And if he isn't, we have a fight on our hands. You see, it would be catastrophic for Gervonta Davis to suffer a loss here.
More so than usual, more so than someone else. You saw the big shock upset loss this past weekend with Jaime Munguia in Tijuana. And as big and bad as that was, Zenford Promotions is no worse for wear as a result. They've got more, much more where that came from. And Top Rank's gonna be just fine.
Because they didn't have it all riding on Jaime Munguia anyway. They've got more, much more where that came from. You think about Anthony Joshua's shock upset loss to Andy Ruiz, his loss to Alexander Usyk, and his more recent loss to Daniel Dubois. Yeah, it hurt Matchroom a bit, but the show goes on, because they too have more where that came from. But does the PBC?
Matchroom just signed 2 Olympians.
On top of all the other fighters they're building, those unbeaten up-and-comers they're still grooming, they are still signing fighters. But is the PBC that if things go sideways for Gervonta in March, the way they just went sideways for Jaime,
there is no next wave, no next generation of PBC fighters to usher in another era of PBC boxing, they very much do have it all riding on Gervonta Davis. And if he loses...
This is entertaining the scenario that Sean Porter presented, that Lamont Roach is familiar with Gervonta Davis. He knows what he's dealing with. He's seen him before.
Up close and personal.
And if by chance Lamont Roach pulls just as big, if not a bigger upset over Gervonta than the one we just saw this past Saturday, that would be catastrophic for the PBC, because they do have a lot riding on Gervonta. He's one of the only bankable fighters they have left. Sellable.
Those other guys, people don't know those guys. At the very most, they're undercard fighters.
Gervonta is one of the few fighters they have left in the stable that can sell some tickets, and if anything happens to him, if nothing does, he himself says that he means to retire. So the PBC may be faced with a situation where they have to try to fill his shoes whether he wins or loses in March.
Do without.
I mean, if he loses, that's pretty bad. But if he doesn't lose, and he follows up on his word, he retires, well, that's just as bad.
We'll see what shakes out in the coming year.
Do you believe that you can stop Tyson Fury this time around?
I believe. Yes, I believe.
With this second time around, how have you mentally pictured this fight, in your opinion?
Nothing. I just prepare. Listen. I don't know. I win. I just win. I'm ready ко всему. For everything. If Tyson different, yes, Tyson will be different. Me too. Because we know each other. But I'll see it's 21st December.
Now that accents a point I made in my previous video, that Tyson Fury could stand to learn from the first fight, but it's not one way. So can Alexander Usyk, because they both know each other now. That Usyk is just as capable of drawing experience from the first fight as Tyson Fury. So if Fury's gonna be different, Usyk might be different too. He says he's ready for anything.
He says he believes he can knock Tyson Fury out. There's reason enough to believe that. Round 9 of the first fight. Did you miss it?
I've seen fights waved off for less than what Fury endured in that 9th round. Oh yes, I've seen a lot of fights stopped for much less than what he was on the receiving end of. So when Usyk says that he believes he can knock the guy out, there's reason to believe that. And I think he needs to. He definitely needs to this time, because I've noticed that Turki LL Sheik seems a bit partial to Tyson Fury. Like he wants Tyson Fury to win?
In fairness, we haven't seen any dodgy scorecards in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. All the shows they've done out there, the ones that actually made it to the cards, we didn't see no dodgy scorecards, no dodgy decisions.
Better Beav and Beevil?
That wasn't dodgy. That fight could have swung either way, so they swung at the art tour. But I wouldn't call that controversial. I wouldn't call it sketchy.
Though still unsettling that Turki LL Sheik does seem partial to Tyson Fury. In the build-up of this weekend's big mega rematch, Usyk needs a knockout. I think he does.
Then remove all doubts and make sure no funny business goes down. Take him out, because at least now you know you can hurt him.
Fury looks to have put on a bit more size ahead of this rematch. He tried playing keep away with Alexander Usyk in the first fight. He likely looks to mow him down in the second, use his natural size and strength to make the little man feel like a little man.
My thoughts.
Playing keep away is what bought Tyson Fury time. Playing keep away and moving lateral, trying to keep the smaller man at the end of the jab, that bought him time. Because if you're trading with this guy mid-range to inside, you're doing half the work for him.
Then he doesn't have to find you.
Making him have to find you and chase you around the ring, that's what bought you time. If you're going to be more aggressive now and more come forward now,
we'll see.
Though I have to admit that after this past weekend's big upset in the Munguia fight, it does put a different complexion on every fight that follows it thereafter.
You never really know.
Jim Lampley used to call it the theater of the unexpected, the sport of boxing. And in a very general sense, the heavyweight division, more so than other divisions, has a lot of room for surprises, because that's the one division where you're always one punch away from being knocked out. So a Tyson Fury win is not out of the question. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
I've got Alexander Usyk myself.
I wouldn't be surprised to hear that there's a late surge of cash coming in, banking on a Tyson Fury win with the sportsbooks. Tyson Fury, who told Devsani he plans on sending Usyk into retirement this Saturday.
Is that what happens if Alexander Usyk loses? If Fury avenges the loss, is that the last we see of Usyk?
I'm trying in cruiserweight again.
Is that real? That you would go undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight, undisputed cruiserweight? You can do that?
Yeah, I try.
Usyk said this in the event that he wins the fight on Saturday. I could see it happening if he loses. If he loses, I don't think he stays at heavyweight. I think he'll move back down and try to become undisputed again in the cruiserweight division. And there, I'd really like his chances based on the landscape today.
I think he can beat Badu Jack. I'm quite confident that he can. I'm quite confident that he can beat Zerto Ramirez. Jai Opataya is the best in show. But Jai Opataya also struggled with an age.
Mayris Briedis in their first fight, and an even more aged, more inactive Mayris Briedis in their rematch. Towards the tail end of that fight, Jai wasn't looking too hot.
Jai's Achilles heel happens to be one of Usyk's strengths. That Jai tends to fade down the stretch, whereas Usyk gets stronger as the fight progresses.
Jai Opataya has youth and freshness on his side. He's quick, he's athletic, punches hard, punches plenty hard, but that's his Achilles heel. He doesn't have the best engine, likely because he hasn't gone the distance very many times.
Usyk has, with bigger men and bigger punchers than Jai Opataya, so that is an interesting tidbit ahead of this weekend's rematch that
Win or lose, Usyk may go to the cruiserweight division. If I had it my way, he'd call it a career. If he wins, I think he should retire. I don't think he has anything else to prove.
you hate to see a fighter, a really great fighter, stay in the sport for one fight too long, end up losing to a guy they would have beat in their prime. It's sad to see. I don't want to see that happen to Usyk.
Sticking around for one fight too many. I've read that book before. And I think if he wins on Saturday, wrap it up. Go do something else. You made enough money.
From the World Boxing Super Series, the Tony Bellew fight, the Chisora fight, the Joshua fights.
The Tyson Fury fight, the kind of money most boxers are never gonna see. He's made more than enough of that. He's gonna make more this weekend.
Win or lose.
So if he wins, I would like to see him retire.
Sail into the sunset on a high.